The stones at Stonehenge did not all come from the same place. Some bluestones were moved from Wales even though local sarsen stone was available. That is the first hard clue. The monument is not just a ring of stones on a grassy plain. It is a record of choices that cost time, labor, distance, and belief. The larger sarsens and smaller bluestones tell two different stories in the same circle. Some stones stand alone. Some are joined by lintels in a way that makes the whole site feel less like a ruin and more like a machine for meaning. That is why Stonehenge never really stopped being mysterious. It is not just old. It is intentional. And once you start asking who placed the stones, where they came from, and why this exact circle exists at this exact place, the site turns into a question that archaeology still has not fully finished answering. Stonehenge sits on Salisbury Plain in southern England, inside a wider ritual landscape that includes other prehistoric monuments, burial sites, and ancient routeways. That matters because Stonehenge was never an isolated object. It belonged to a place already charged with human activity. The plain is open, windswept, and visible for miles. That kind of setting makes a monument feel deliberate. It announces itself to the sky. It frames the horizon. And it invites the eye to look beyond the stones toward the seasons, the sun, and the movement of time. This is one reason Stonehenge survives so powerfully in the modern imagination. It is not a tiny artifact in a museum case. It is a landscape-sized puzzle. The question is not just what the stones are, it is what kind of world could have made them matter this much. Stonehenge was not built in one moment. It appears to have evolved over many centuries, with different phases of construction, rearrangement, and use. That alone changes how the mystery works. Instead of one dramatic act of building, we are looking at a long relationship between people and place. Early earthworks came first. Then timber and stone activity followed. And over time the monument became the version of itself that we recognize today. That means Stonehenge is not a static relic. It is a record of decisions made across generations. Some choices were practical, some were ceremonial, some were probably both. The site survives because it is the visible tip of a much larger prehistoric world, one where monument building was part engineering, part cosmology, and part social memory. One of the most famous facts about Stonehenge is that the stones did not all come from the same place. The larger sarsens are local to the region. The smaller bluestones came from much farther away, linked to sources in Wales. That distance is important because it raises the obvious question. Why move heavy stones across such a long route if local stone was available? The answer may be practical, symbolic, or both. People do not drag monumental rocks unless the rocks mean something. At Stonehenge, the journey may be part of the monument's power. The effort itself becomes evidence of purpose. And if the stones were moved deliberately over long distances, then the site was never just a pile of useful geology. It was an act of choice repeated at scale. The transport question is where popular imagination likes to sprint ahead of the evidence. You will hear stories about giants, magic, or lost knowledge. But archaeology usually starts with the harder, less glamorous answer: people, tools, coordination, and time. Stone can be moved on rollers, sledges, logs, ropes, waterways, and carefully prepared routes. That does not make the task easy. It makes it social. A monument like Stonehenge requires planning, labor, and some kind of authority or shared belief strong enough to keep a long project moving. So the real mystery is not whether humans could move the stones. They could, with enough organization. The deeper question is why they cared enough to do it, and what kind of social or spiritual system made that effort feel worth the cost. Stonehenge is often linked to the solstices, especially the alignment of the stones with the rising or setting sun at key times of year. That is where the site becomes more than a monument. It becomes a calendar of light. In a pre-modern world, the sky is not background decoration. It is information. It tells you when to plant, when to gather, when to travel, and when the year is turning. If Stonehenge was designed to stage those moments, then the site may have served as a place where cosmic order became visible on the ground. That does not require aliens. It requires observation. And patience. People who watched the sky closely enough could turn stone into a frame for time itself. Stonehenge was not just about astronomy. The wider landscape includes burials and ceremonial activity, which suggests memory and death were part of the site's meaning. That is important because monuments often do more than mark events. They organize belonging. They say who is remembered. They define sacred ground. And they turn a location into a story that can outlive the people who built it. If Stonehenge was part of funerary or ancestral practice, then its power comes from a very human need, the wish to make absence visible. To give the dead a place in the world of the living. And to make the sky, the stones, and the earth all seem to agree on the same memory. Stonehenge keeps changing because archaeology keeps changing. Every survey, excavation, and analysis adds another layer to the picture of how the monument evolved and how the surrounding landscape was used. That is one of the reasons the site stays alive in public imagination. It is not locked in the past. It is still being read. The ground around Stonehenge has produced clues about burial, movement, sequence, and reuse, but no single discovery has turned the monument into a solved puzzle. Instead, the evidence keeps pointing back to a more human answer. This was a place where communities invested time, labor, and meaning over generations. That is less flashy than a mythic origin story. It is also more durable, because the monument is not impressive only because it is old. It is impressive because it was important enough for people to keep returning to it. Stonehenge has collected legends the way old ruins collect rain. Some stories made it a druid temple. Some made it a healing site. Some turned it into proof of lost civilizations or impossible engineering. That is what happens when a place is old enough, strange enough, and visible enough. People project meaning onto it. The legend can become stronger than the archaeology. But the myths are not worthless. They tell us something real about the monument's emotional force. Stonehenge keeps pulling people into explanation because it still feels like a message carved into the land, even when the exact language is lost. So what is Stonehenge? The simplest answer is that it is a prehistoric monument built and changed over time by human communities with remarkable ambition. The deeper answer is that it is a machine for organizing attention. It gathers stone, sky, season, burial, and memory into one place. That is why the site still feels mysterious even after centuries of study. Not because it must hide aliens, but because it reveals something stronger. Humans have always been willing to move impossible things when the meaning was big enough. Stonehenge is proof of that. The wonder is not that the stones arrived. The wonder is that people made a world where stones could matter this much. That is the part modern viewers often miss. Stonehenge is not only a puzzle about engineering. It is a record of commitment. A place where generations kept returning, rearranging, remembering, and reinterpreting the same ground until it became larger than any one explanation. That is why the site still feels alive. It was made to outlast a single moment, and it did. If Stonehenge made you think differently about monuments, memory, and the sky, stay with the Mystery Atlas TV. We will keep following places where evidence and legend overlap. Subscribe for the full series, and tell me in the comments whether you think Stonehenge is mostly astronomy, ancestry, ceremony, or something even bigger.